Help me. The cry tore across the open air, thin and fragile against the vast stretch of canyon sky, as if the wind itself tried to swallow it before anyone could hear. Ava Johnson's fingers trembled against the rough edge of stone, her knuckles pale, her breath coming in short, uneven pulls that echoed louder in her ears than anything else around her. The late afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the jagged terrain, turning every surface into something sharper, colder, more distant. Behind her, a cluster of laughter lingered, not loud, not kind, just careless, like the moment didn't matter, like she didn't matter. Ava didn't turn back. She had learned a long time ago that looking back only made things harder. Her left leg, weaker since birth, quivered beneath her weight, the brace under her jeans pressing tight against her skin, reminding her of every step she had ever taken slower than everyone else. But her eyes stayed forward, locked on something beyond the edge, something invisible but real enough to hold on to. The air smelled like dust and dry leaves, carried by a steady breeze that whispered through the canyon walls, brushing past her face like a warning. Somewhere in the distance, faint at first, there was another sound, low, mechanical, rhythmic, like a heartbeat made of steel, but it faded in and out, too far to matter, too distant to trust. Ava swallowed hard, her throat dry, her voice smaller now, but still there. Please. It barely made it past her lips, dissolving into the wind as her grip shifted slightly against the stone. Tiny fragments of gravel slipped beneath her palm, tumbling downward, disappearing into the unseen depths below. Her chest tightened, not just from fear, but from something deeper, something stubborn, something that refused to let go. She had always been the one who stayed quiet, the one who endured, the one who kept moving even when the world made it harder than it should have been. And yet, in this moment, there was no quiet left to hold on to. The sky above stretched endlessly blue, indifferent and wide, while the ground beneath her felt uncertain, like it could vanish with a single misstep. The laughter behind her softened, turning into murmurs, shifting, uncertain now, as if even they could feel something changing in the air. Ava's fingers tightened again, her nails pressing into the rough surface, grounding herself in something real, something solid. The wind picked up, stronger this time, carrying with it that same distant rumble, clearer now, closer than before. It rolled through the canyon like a warning bell, low and steady, vibrating through the stone beneath her hands. Ava's eyes flickered, just for a second, not back, but outward, toward the horizon where the sound seemed to come alive. Her heart pounded against her ribs, each beat louder than the last, syncing with that growing noise, that approaching presence she couldn't yet see. And for the first time since the moment began, something shifted, not in the world behind her, but in the space ahead, where silence had once lived. It wasn't safety. Not yet. But it wasn't nothing anymore either. Ava Johnson had never been fast, not in the way other kids measured speed, not in seconds or finish lines, or how quickly someone could run from one place to another. But she had always been steady, the kind of steady that came from learning early that the world did not slow down for you, that if you wanted to keep up you had to find your own rhythm and trust it even when no one else did. She remembered the first time she noticed it, standing in a crowded school hallway when she was 9 years old, her left foot dragging just slightly behind the right, the brace stiff and unfamiliar, the noise of lockers slamming and voices echoing around her like waves she could not quite move through. Other kids rushed past without looking, their shoulders brushing hers, their laughter loud and careless. And for a moment, she had felt invisible, like a shadow pressed against the wall. But then her mother's voice came back to her, soft but certain, telling her that being slower did not mean being less, that strength was not always loud, and that sometimes the quiet ones were the ones who saw everything the rest of the world missed. That was how Ava learned to watch, to listen, to notice the small things, the shifts in tone, the pauses between words, the way people revealed themselves when they thought no one was paying attention. It was also how she learned when to speak and when to stay silent. Today, she had chosen to speak. The memory flickered through her mind like sunlight through moving branches, brief but grounding, as her fingers adjusted again against the rough surface beneath them. The stone felt colder now, the texture sharper against her skin, as if the world itself had narrowed down to this single point of contact between her and something solid. Her breathing slowed, not because the fear had disappeared, but because she forced it to, pulling each breath in deeper, steadier, the way she had practiced during physical therapy sessions that smelled faintly of antiseptic and rubber mats. In through the nose, hold, out through the mouth. Again, the wind shifted direction, brushing across her face and lifting a few loose strands of her hair, carrying with it that distant mechanical hum that was no longer as faint as before. It rolled in low waves, uneven at first, then steadier, like something moving closer mile by mile. Ava did not know what it was, did not know if it mattered, but she held on to it anyway, the same way she held on to every small sign that she was not completely alone in the world. Behind her, the voices had changed. The laughter was gone now, replaced by something quieter, less certain, like people unsure of what came next when the moment stopped being amusing. A shoe scraped lightly against gravel. Someone exhaled sharply. Another voice muttered something she could not quite make out. Ava did not turn around. She focused instead on the feeling in her hands, the pressure in her arms, the steady beat of her heart that refused to slow down completely. Her leg trembled again, the muscles tightening and releasing in uneven pulses, but she adjusted her stance just enough to hold herself in place. She had learned how to do that too, how to adapt in small ways that others never noticed, shifting weight, finding balance where it did not seem possible. The sky above had deepened slightly in color, the blue growing richer as the sun edged lower, and the shadows stretched longer across the ground behind her. Time felt strange here, like it was moving too fast and too slow all at once. Ava swallowed again, her throat still dry, but her voice did not come out this time. Instead, she listened. The sound was clearer now, no longer just a distant echo but something defined, something real, growing louder with each passing second. It vibrated faintly through the ground, through the stone beneath her hands, through the air itself. Ava's eyes lifted just a fraction, not enough to lose focus, but enough to catch the line of the horizon where the sound seemed to rise. And in that moment, even before she saw anything, she felt it, the shift in the air, the change in the rhythm of everything around her, like the world was about to open in a way she could not yet understand. She held on, not because she knew what was coming, but because she believed, quietly and stubbornly, that something was. Tyler Brooks shifted his weight and glanced at the others, the confidence he usually wore so easily and now flickering at the edges, like something cracking beneath the surface that he could not quite control. He had always been the one who set the tone, the one people watched before they reacted, the one who decided what was funny and what was not, and for a long time that had been enough to keep everything in place. But this moment did not follow the same script. The air felt different now, heavier, like the canyon itself was holding its breath. He looked past Ava for a second, toward the open stretch of land beyond her, his eyes narrowing as the distant sound grew clearer, no longer something he could ignore. It rolled in steady waves, deep and mechanical, echoing against the rock walls and bouncing back in a rhythm that felt deliberate, approaching. One of the boys behind him let out a nervous laugh, softer than before, like he was trying to bring the moment back to something familiar, but it did not land the same way. Another shifted his stance, glancing down briefly, then away, as if suddenly unsure where to look. Tyler exhaled slowly, forcing his shoulders to stay relaxed, forcing control back into his posture. "It is just noise," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. But the words felt thin, like they did not quite belong in the space anymore. Ava heard the shift even without turning, the subtle change in tone, the way the air behind her no longer carried the same careless energy. It did not make her feel safe, not yet, but it gave her something else, something small and steady that settled deep in her chest. She tightened her grip again, adjusting, her fingers against the uneven surface, feeling every ridge and crack as if memorizing them. The stone scraped lightly against her skin, grounding her, reminding her that she was still here, still holding on. Her breathing steadied further, each inhale deeper than the last, each exhale slower, controlled. The sound grew louder, closer now, no longer distant but present, filling the space between the canyon walls with a low, constant vibration. It was no longer something imagined. It was real. Tyler took a step back, just a small one, but enough that the gravel beneath his shoes shifted audibly, breaking the stillness in a way that felt louder than it should have been. He glanced again toward the direction of the sound, his jaw tightening slightly. The others followed his gaze now, their attention pulled away from Ava for the first time since the moment began. The laughter was gone completely, replaced by a quiet that felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. Ava sensed it, the shift in focus, the way the pressure behind her eased just enough to notice. She did not move, did not look back, but her eyes lifted slightly again, drawn toward the horizon where the sounds seemed to gather. The late afternoon light caught the edge of something far in the distance, a flicker of movement against the dusty trail that wound along the lower ridge. It was faint, almost easy to miss, but it was there, growing clearer with each passing second. The rumble deepened, stronger now, echoing through the ground and into her hands, into her arms, into her chest. Ava's heart matched it, beat for beat, as if something unseen was closing the distance between silence and sound, between fear and something else she could not yet name. She swallowed again, her throat still tight, but her voice remained quiet this time. She did not need to call out again. Not now. Because for the first time since everything began, it felt like something out there was already listening. The sound was no longer distant now. It pressed into the canyon like a living thing, rolling through the air in steady pulses that seemed to shift the balance of everything around them. Ava felt it first through her hands, a faint vibration traveling from the stone into her fingers, up her arms, settling somewhere deep in her chest where her breath had finally found. A fragile rhythm. She held on to that rhythm, matching it, letting it steady her as her grip adjusted once more against the uneven surface. Her muscles burned, her left leg trembling under the strain, but she did not let go. She had learned long ago that holding on was sometimes the only choice that mattered. Behind her, Tyler's voice broke the silence again, sharper this time, edged with something he tried to hide. "We are leaving," he said quickly, almost too quickly, as if saying it out loud could restore control. But no one moved right away. The others hesitated, their attention still pulled toward the growing sound, their earlier confidence replaced by something uncertain, something that did not fit the roles they had been playing just moments before. One of them took a step back, then another, the gravel shifting underfoot in small, uneven slides that echoed louder than expected in the open space. Tyler turned his head slightly, his jaw tightening as he followed their gaze, and for the first time, he saw it clearly. Two distant figures moving along the lower ridge, still small against the wide landscape, but unmistakable now. The late sunlight caught flashes of chrome and black, glinting in sharp, deliberate bursts as the machines beneath them moved forward with steady purpose. The sound deepened, no longer just a background presence, but something defined, something approaching with intent. Ava's eyes lifted again, just enough to catch the movement at the edge of her vision. She did not need to see them clearly to understand what was happening. The air had already changed. The silence behind her had already broken. She drew in a slow breath, deeper than before, holding it for a second before letting it go, steady and controlled. Her fingers tightened once more, grounding herself in the present, in the stone, in the moment that had not yet passed. Tyler stepped back again, this time without realizing it, his weight shifting unevenly as he glanced between Ava and the approaching figures. The space he had controlled so easily just minutes ago no longer belonged to him in the same way. The others followed his movement instinctively, creating distance where there had been none, their earlier formation breaking apart into something scattered and unsure. The canyon seemed to amplify everything now, the sound of engines, the scrape of shoes against rock, the quiet, uneven breaths that filled the spaces in between. Ava felt the tension shift fully then, like a line pulled too tight finally giving way. She did not look back. She did not need to. The pressure behind her had changed direction, no longer closing in, but pulling away, retreating in small, uncertain steps. The wind moved through again, stronger now, lifting dust and carrying the sound forward in clear, unmistakable waves. The two figures on the ridge grew larger with each passing second, their presence no longer distant, no longer abstract, but real and undeniable. Ava's heart continued to pound, But it was different now, less frantic, more anchored, as if something inside her had decided to endure just a little longer. She adjusted her grip once more, her fingers finding a more secure hold along a narrow ridge of stone, her body shifting carefully to maintain balance. Every movement was deliberate, measured, controlled. She had practiced this kind of control her entire life, in classrooms, in hallways, in moments where the world expected her to fall behind. Not today, not here. The sound reached them fully now, filling the canyon with a presence that could not be ignored, and for the first time since the moment began, Ava allowed herself to believe that the silence she had feared was finally gone. The ground beneath Ava's hands felt smaller now, as if the space she held onto was shrinking with every passing second, forcing her to be more precise, more aware of every inch of contact between her skin and the rough stone. Her fingers tightened, then adjusted again, searching for a better grip along the narrow edge that pressed into her palms. Tiny grains of dust shifted under her touch, slipping away in quiet, almost invisible trails that disappeared into the open space below. Her arms trembled, not violently, but in a steady, controlled strain that she refused to let break her focus. She pulled in another slow breath, deeper this time, holding it for a moment before releasing it carefully, just as she had practiced over and over again in rooms where the air smelled clean and predictable, nothing like the wild openness surrounding her now. Behind her, the movement had changed completely. Tyler took another step back, then another, his earlier certainty unraveling with each inch of distance he created. He glanced once more toward the approaching figures, now close enough that their outlines were clear, their presence no longer something distant or abstract, but something immediate, something real. The sound of the engines filled the canyon, steady and unyielding, echoing off the rock walls in a way that made it impossible to ignore. One of the boys turned fully away, his shoulders tightening as he moved back, creating space where there had been none before. Another followed, their earlier formation dissolving into scattered, uncertain steps. No one laughed now. No one spoke with confidence. The air that had once felt controlled now belonged to something else entirely. Ava sensed it without looking, the way the pressure behind her had lifted just enough to breathe more freely, just enough to feel the difference between being surrounded and being left alone. But the danger had not disappeared. The edge beneath her hands remained unforgiving, the balance she held still fragile. Her left leg shifted slightly, the brace pressing hard against her skin as she adjusted her stance again, searching for stability. A small stone slipped under her foot, sliding away with a faint, scraping sound that made her heart jump sharply in her chest. She froze for a fraction of a second, her breath catching, her grip tightening instinctively as she steadied herself. Do not rush. Do not panic. The words echoed quietly in her mind, not as fear, but as instruction. She had lived her entire life learning how to move carefully, how to navigate spaces that were not designed for her, how to adapt when things shifted unexpectedly. This was no different. The sound grew louder still, now accompanied by the clear crunch of tires against gravel somewhere beyond the ridge, the engines slowing slightly, as if whoever approached was taking in the scene before fully arriving. Ava's eyes lifted just enough to catch the movement again, clearer now, closer than before. The sunlight reflected off metal surfaces, sharp flashes cutting through the warm tones of the canyon, marking their presence with undeniable clarity. Tyler stopped moving then, his body turning slightly as if caught between leaving and staying, his control over the moment completely gone. He did not speak again. None of them did. The silence that followed was not empty, but full, heavy with the sound of engines, the movement of wind, the quiet strain of breath and heartbeat. Ava held on, her fingers pressing into the stone with renewed determination, her body adjusting once more to maintain balance. Every muscle in her arms and legs worked together now, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to hold. Enough to endure. The air shifted again, carrying with it the full presence of what was arriving. And for the first time since she had reached the edge, Ava allowed herself a single, steady thought. Just a little longer. Just hold on a little longer. The engine slowed, not abruptly, but with a controlled, deliberate easing that made their presence feel even heavier, as if whoever rode them had already decided exactly where to stop long before arriving. The sound settled into a low, steady rumble that vibrated through the canyon floor, through the stone beneath Ava's hands, through the air that now felt thick and charged with something unspoken. She closed her eyes for a brief second, not to escape, but to focus, to gather every ounce of strength still left in her arms and shoulders. Her fingers were stiff now, the joints aching from the constant tension, but they did not loosen, not even a fraction. She inhaled slowly, counting in her mind, 1, 2, 3, holding it, then letting it out just as carefully, her breath visible only in the quiet rhythm of her chest rising and falling. The wind softened for a moment, as if even it had paused to listen. Behind her, there was no laughter, no movement that felt careless anymore. Only the faint sound of shifting feet and uneven breathing, the kind that came when people no longer knew what role they were supposed to play. Tyler stood still, his gaze fixed outward, his shoulders no longer squared with confidence, but held in a way that suggested something unfamiliar pressing in. He did not speak. He did not need to. The moment had already moved beyond him. Ava opened her eyes again, her vision steady despite the strain, and lifted her gaze just enough to see the edge of motion ahead. The two figures had reached the lower clearing now, their machines angled slightly as they came to a full stop. The engines did not cut off immediately. They idled, deep and low, like a heartbeat that refused to disappear. Dust swirled gently around them, catching the warm light of the late afternoon sun, creating a hazy veil that made their outlines appear both solid and distant at the same time. Ava could not see their faces clearly, but she did not need to. There was something in the way they held still, in the way they observed before acting, that felt grounded, certain, different from everything that had led to this moment. Her grip shifted again, her right hand finding a slightly deeper groove in the stone, her left adjusting carefully to match it. The movement was small, almost invisible, but it mattered. Every inch mattered. Her leg trembled again, more noticeably now, the strain building with each passing second, but she pressed her weight just enough to stabilize, just enough to hold. The canyon seemed quieter despite the engines, as if the sound had become part of the silence rather than breaking it. Ava listened, not just with her ears, but with everything she had, her focus narrowing to the present moment, to the exact placement of her hands, the angle of her body, the rhythm of her breath. Time stretched thin, each second longer than the last, but she did not rush it. She had learned that rushing was where mistakes lived. Instead, she stayed still, steady, anchored in the small space she controlled. The wind returned, brushing across her face again, cooler now as the sun dipped lower, carrying with it the faint scent of engine oil and dust. It wrapped around her like a quiet signal that something had changed, that the isolation she had felt just moments ago was no longer absolute. Behind her, no one moved closer. No one reached out. The distance remained, and in that distance, something important had shifted. Ava tightened her grip once more, her fingers pressing firmly into the stone, her body holding its fragile balance. She did not look back. She did not need reassurance spoken out loud. The presence was enough. The sound was enough. And in the stillness that followed, she held on, not out of fear anymore, but out of a quiet, unshaken determination that had been there all along, waiting for the moment when it finally mattered most. One of the engines cut first, the sound dropping away in a clean, deliberate click that echoed louder than expected in the canyon stillness, leaving the second engine idling low and steady beside it. Ava felt the shift immediately, not just in the air, but in the way the ground beneath her seemed to settle, as if the moment had reached a turning point that could not be undone. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing controlled, her fingers still locked into the narrow ridge of stone that held her in place. Then came the sound of boots against gravel, slow and measured, each step placed with intention rather than urgency. Whoever had arrived was not rushing. They were assessing, watching, deciding. Ava's chest tightened slightly, not with fear, but with anticipation that she did not fully understand. Behind her, Tyler finally spoke again, but his voice had lost the sharp edge it once carried. "We did not do anything," he said quickly, the words coming out uneven, like he was trying to get ahead of something that had already passed him. No one responded. The silence that followed was heavier than anything he could have said. Another step, then another. The second engine cut, leaving only the wind and the faint ticking of cooling metal. Ava could hear it clearly now, the absence of noise becoming its own kind of presence. She adjusted her grip once more, her fingers pressing deeper into the stone, her arms trembling but holding. A shadow stretched across the ground ahead of her, long and steady, moving closer with each step. It reached the edge before the person did, dark against the pale rock, stopping just short of where Ava clung. For a brief second, everything paused. The wind softened. The canyon held its breath. Then a voice, low and calm, broke the silence. Easy now. It was not loud. It did not need to be. The tone carried something stronger than volume, something grounded and certain that settled into the space without forcing it. Ava did not turn her head, but her eyes shifted slightly, just enough to register the presence at the edge above her. Another set of footsteps approached, stopping a few feet back, creating a quiet perimeter that felt protective without being overwhelming. The first voice spoke again, just as steady as before. I see you. You are holding on just fine. Ava swallowed, her throat tight, but her breathing remained controlled, matching the rhythm she had built over the last few minutes. The words did not rush her. They did not command her. They met her where she was. Her fingers tightened again, instinctively, as she felt a slight shift in her footing, the edge beneath her foot narrowing just enough to remind her how fragile the balance still was. She steadied herself, adjusting carefully, refusing to let the moment slip. Behind her, no one moved closer. No one interrupted. The space that had once been filled with noise now held only quiet observation. Tyler said nothing more. Ava heard the faint sound of fabric shifting, then the subtle scrape of something being placed on the ground above her, followed by the controlled movement of someone lowering themselves closer to the edge. The voice returned, softer now, but just as clear. Do not look down. Stay right where you are. We are here. Ava's eyes closed for a brief second, not in fear, but in focus, letting the words settle, letting them anchor her just as firmly as the stone beneath her hands. When she opened them again, her gaze remained steady, fixed forward, her body holding its position with quiet determination. The moment had changed completely now. The uncertainty, the isolation, the pressure that had once surrounded her had shifted into something else, something steadier, something real. She did not need to ask who they were. She did not need to understand everything happening above her. All she needed to do was hold on, just a little longer, as the space between her and the edge above slowly, carefully began to close. The distance between Ava's hands and the edge above her began to shrink in careful inches, not rushed, not forced, but guided with a patience that felt deliberate and steady. She could hear the subtle movement above now, the quiet shift of weight, the controlled placement of hands against stone, each motion measured as if every inch mattered just as much as it did to her. The voice returned again, closer this time, calm and even. You are doing exactly right. Do not change anything yet. Ava nodded slightly, more to herself than to them, her fingers tightening again as she held her position. Her arms ached, the strain deep and constant now, but the steadiness in that voice gave her something to hold on to beyond the rock beneath her. A second voice, lower and quieter, spoke from just behind the first. I have got her angle. She is holding strong. There was no panic in it, no urgency that would break. The moment, only observation, grounded and clear. Ava felt something shift near her right hand, not touching yet, but close enough that she could sense it, like the air itself had changed shape. I am going to reach down, the first voice said, slower now, each word placed with intention. When I do, I need you to move your right hand to me. Only your right. Keep the left where it is. Ava swallowed, her throat tight again, but her breathing remained steady, controlled. She looked at her right hand, at the way her fingers pressed into the stone, and for a brief second, doubt flickered through her mind. What if she slipped? What if she lost the only hold she had? But then she heard it again, that steady presence in the voice above her, not demanding, not rushing, just there. You are not alone. I have you. Ava closed her eyes for half a second, gathering herself, then opened them again, her focus sharpening. Okay, she whispered, her voice quiet but clear. Slowly, carefully, she shifted her weight, pressing more firmly through her left side, anchoring herself as best as she could. Her right fingers loosened, just slightly at first, testing the movement, feeling the edge beneath them before releasing fully. The moment stretched, thin and fragile, as her hand lifted away from the stone. For a fraction of a second, there was nothing beneath it, only open air and the sound of her own breath. Then she felt it. A firm, steady grip wrapping around her wrist, not tight, not pulling, just secure. It did not jerk her upward. It held. "I have you." The voice repeated, closer now, grounded in something solid. Ava's fingers instinctively curled around the arm that held her, her grip tightening as she felt the difference between stone and something living, something responsive. "Good. That is good," the second voice said quietly. "Now we bring you in, slow and steady." Ava shifted again, following the guidance without needing to see it, her left hand still pressed firmly into the rock as her body adjusted inch by inch. The pull was gradual, controlled, matching her pace rather than forcing it. Her left hand searched for a new hold, fingers brushing against the surface until they found a higher ridge. She pressed into it, testing it, then committed, her body moving slightly upward as the distance between her and the edge narrowed further. Her leg trembled again, but the angle changed just enough to give her more support. The tension that had held her in place began to transform into movement, into progress. Behind her, the silence remained, heavy and absolute. No one interrupted. No one stepped forward. The moment belonged entirely to what was happening at the edge now. Ava's breathing deepened, her focus locked on each small adjustment, each inch gained. The hand holding her remained steady, never rushing, never tightening beyond what was needed. "You are almost there," the first voice said, softer now, closer still. Ava could feel the edge within reach now, the solid line of safety no longer distant, but real, tangible. She pushed once more, her arms straining, her body rising just enough for her left forearm to find the top. The stone above felt different, warmer from the sun, broader, more secure. She pressed into it, her weight shifting upward, the final inches closing between her and the ground above as the hands guiding her remained steady, patient, and unwavering. The moment Ava's weight crossed the edge, everything slowed, not in time itself, but in the way her body finally understood it was no longer suspended between holding on and letting go. Her forearms pressed firmly against the warm stone, her fingers gripping the solid ground as the steady hands guiding her did not pull, but supported, allowing her to complete the movement with her own strength. Inch by inch, she shifted forward until her shoulders cleared the ledge, then her torso, until at last she lay fully on the flat surface above, her chest rising and falling in deep, uneven breaths that echoed quietly in the open air. The strain in her arms released all at once, replaced by a heavy stillness that settled into her muscles like a long exhale after holding too much for too long. For a few seconds, she did not move. She simply stayed there, her cheek pressed lightly against the sun-warmed rock, her eyes half closed as the world around her slowly came back into focus. The wind moved gently across her back now, no longer sharp or urgent, but soft, carrying with it the fading scent of dust and engine oil. Nearby, the presence of the two men remained steady, not crowding her, not overwhelming her, just there, grounded and quiet. One of them shifted slightly, the faint sound of leather and gravel marking the movement. Then a voice, the same calm one from before, spoke again, softer now. "You are safe." Ava did not respond right away. Her breathing steadied gradually, each inhale deeper than the last, each exhale slower, more controlled. She pushed herself up just enough to sit, her movements careful, deliberate, as if her body needed to relearn the feeling of being supported by something solid. Her left leg extended in front of her, the brace visible beneath the fabric, and she rested her hands lightly on the ground beside her, feeling the difference between holding on and simply being. For a moment, she looked out across the canyon, the vast stretch of land bathed in the golden light of late afternoon, everything quiet and still in a way that felt almost unreal compared to what had just passed. Then her gaze shifted slightly, just enough to catch the figures beside her more clearly. They did not say much. One gave a small nod, not dramatic, not exaggerated, just an acknowledgement, steady and respectful. Ava returned it with a faint nod of her own, her expression calm, her eyes clear despite everything. Behind them, Farther back, the others remained at a distance, silent, unmoving, as if the space between them had grown wider than the canyon itself. No one stepped forward. No one spoke. The moment did not need it. Ava drew in another slow breath, feeling the air fill her lungs fully this time, without interruption, without fear. She placed her palm flat against the ground once more, pressing gently into the stone as if to remind herself it was real, that she was here, that she had made it back. The engines remained quiet now, the earlier rumble replaced by stillness that felt earned rather than empty. The sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting long, soft shadows that stretched across the rock and wrapped the scene in a quiet, golden calm. Ava did not rush to stand. She did not speak. She simply sat there for a moment longer, her breathing steady, her hands relaxed, her presence grounded in the silence that followed. And in that silence, without words, without explanation, something settled into place, not loud, not dramatic, but certain, like the quiet recognition of strength that had been there. All along, finally seen, finally undeniable.